President Trump is joining some of the most incredible people in history being arrested today. Nelson Mandela was arrested, served time in prison. Jesus was arrested and murdered by the Roman government.
I thought that the dumbest, most ignorant reference to Nelson Mandela in modern history would continue to be Bush's "Mandela's dead." But no, she found a way to make it worse. Political prisoners, Jesus himself, Trump. Mandela, Jesus, Trump. I think that we're devolving as a people, if that's the arc that we're on. I'm not gonna say I know everything about the tragic tale of what happened to Jesus Christ, but I don't think hush money payments and rolled up Forbes magazine spanking his bare bottom, I don't think those were big parts of the New Testament. I haven't read every page, so I don't rule it out, but I don't remember anything about hush money payments. Dan, what do you think? Everybody loves a historic reference. She wants to prove that she has read a book from time to time.
A moment of silence, please, pouring out from Michael Brooks, because there is a right-wing Nelson Mandela impression just waiting to happen that unfortunately I cannot give for y'all. The idea of comparing, I mean, like, she's gonna do this. The idea of comparing like actual political prisoners and like folks who have, they've been arrested by their state, trying to fight for the rights of a larger group of people. What right is Donald Trump fighting for? Other than Marjorie Taylor Greene slowly leaning towards and going, you know what rights? The only rights he's fighting for is his right to pay off adult film stars. And the other thing about this is Donald Trump, in Manhattan especially, has existed his entire long life knowing that he's above the law, knowing that money or connections or legal prospects that he's had since birth, privileges that most Americans will never be able to achieve or even dream about, all right? Yeah. It's all been going well for Donald Trump. This is the one time where he actually has to face accountability for that. It's nothing to do with Nelson Mandela, it's nothing to do with Jesus. I'm not even gonna touch that one, that's just insane.
Yeah, the idea, like, there are real people who have suffered for their political values. To prove a point, to get a message across, to rally public opinion. There are people who have done that. Donald Trump has never suffered for even a second for anyone other than himself. Anyway, Marjorie Greene wasn't just doing interviews, she's there. She's, well, at least in New York or whatever. She had tweeted, "I'm here in New York to protest with my voice against the what else would you be protesting with anyway? Against the weaponization of the justice system on innocent President Trump. But the counter protesters are coming to commit assault that can cause audible damage to everyone's ears, including NYPD." Does she mean auditory damage? The damage isn't audible. The English language is an amazing thing, complex in some ways, I acknowledge that, but it's worth learning, Marjorie. Anyway, what she's referencing there is that someone somewhere had put out, if you bring up the message again, that they should bring, the counter protesters should bring instruments, pots and pans, whatever you got to make some noise. A pot and a pan being clanged together might be annoying, I will grant you that. It's not going to burst people's eardrums, you weirdo. And the funny thing was, Marjorie Greene did a little protest thing, not at the actual courthouse or anything like that. She was off somewhere else. And she spoke very briefly at this thing, and you actually could not hear her over whistles. So it almost seemed as if her prediction had come true. But people interviewed, there was a Trump guy, huge Trump fan, and he was giving out whistles saying he wanted to make a ruckus for Donald Trump. And someone asked him, "Aren't you worried that this is gonna drown out the speakers?" And he hadn't thought about it. And so you actually couldn't hear her because of the MAGA people. She then, by the way, went to the actual place near where Trump, I guess, has just walked in. It was barely a thing, you can't see it from close up. So if you were waiting for that on CNN, that's a waste of time, apologies. And she spoke for maybe a minute and then left. And that was it. And George Santos showed up very, very briefly and then left. And then that was it. That was their great 1776 moment. She screamed into a bullhorn for 30 seconds and then went back to her hotel. What do you think, Dan?
I think even as a dedicated politician to the MAGA cause, that's a waste of a flight. I mean, like it's a lot of effort to even drive, or I doubt this is an Amtrak kind of person, to go from Washington D.C. to New York to, yeah, of course you do political appearances and speeches and things like that, but this has got to be the most performative just joke for all these different things. And again, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's made her bed. She's going to be a Trump sycophant. I think the idea that she's, if anything, I thought that when she was explaining Audible, I'm bringing my Audible voice, I thought that was because most of her fans would bring guns or something like that. So I'm at least a little bit bright about that spot. But do we have maybe some minor updates?
Yeah, so supposedly he's now awaiting arraignment. He was brought in. Like I said, it was hard to tell because it was helicopter footage, and it was just this sort of orangish hair lump doing this, moving very slowly. People are saying that on CBS's camera, which I guess is a different camera, he smiled and waved. He did not look happy from what I saw, from what passes for a body language that I saw. He did not seem particularly happy, but I'm sure on the right, one wave is all they need to believe that the great storm is finally coming. Anyway, Van Jones is analyzing it on CNN, so dear God, who knows what's coming.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.